Hey guys, it's John and Shannon, and we are here with another net worth update.
So if you guys have been following along in this series, we have been taking you on our path to financial independence. We are aiming for FatFire, or being able to be financially independent and retire early with enough money to essentially live like rich people in retirement. But we graduated from college and law school with $300,000 of student debt. And in this series, we have taken you year by year since 2008, when we graduated, all the way up to today, which is September of 2019, on our journey. So you can click back and look at our other videos to see how we got to up to this point.
So we're changing the format a little bit in response to some feedback, and just because we think it's going to be a little bit clearer. We're listing our debts from smallest to largest instead of just sort of randomly, because I think it's a little bit easier to visualize that way. We're listing our assets from largest to smallest, kind of for the same reason. We are showing the positive or negative change in our assets and liabilities for each asset and liability on the list.
And then we're going to color code things to show you sort of how we feel about them.
We also have some charts that are more illustrative of our assets and our debt. And then we're going to show percentages of all of our overall numbers.
So let's get into it. Here's a picture of us in September of 2019. You guys might notice, I don't know if it's super clear in this picture, but I have a little bit of a baby bump. We are pregnant. Here are our debts. So as you guys can see, the last time we updated you was May of 2019, and this is now September of 2019. So it's been a period of a couple of months. And we've organized this in terms of smallest debts to largest debts, because that's going to be the order in which we pay things off. There's a new item on here, which is a life insurance loan. So we had put in May of last year a life insurance credit, and we actually looked into this further, and we discovered a new loan that we forgot that we had taken out. So long story short, my dad had a life insurance policy on me that he paid from the time that I was like a child. He transferred it over to me. And at some point when we were purchasing an investment property, we actually were able to take out a loan against the cash value of that life insurance policy, and we're able to and we're paying it back. We had it on auto pay. We just totally forgot about it. The life insurance, total cash value of it was about $37,000. But we had taken out a loan for $25,000, which by May was paid back to $22,000. So if we do a correction like that going forward, you guys will see that here it's underlined. So that's an addition that it was a mistake from last time.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird because it's a loan against, I guess now an asset that we sort of own or whatever. So it's a loan and that we have to repay it, but it's also kind of our own money. Although, as you'll see very soon, this loan does not stay long on our sheets here, but at least for the purpose of this month, it's just a little bit weird because it's a loan against something that we own, but we do have to repay it.
$1,500. It was like $20,000 for. Anyway, that was $22,000 in May of 2019. In September of 2019, it was $20,481 for a change of around $1,500. Our credit card debt in May was around $18,900, and it shot through the roof up in September of 2019 to $72,800 for a change of around $53,900. So in a couple of months, we added what some people make in a year to our credit card balance, which is totally nuts. This is reflective of the fact that we put basically a lot of living expenses and things like that on these 0% balance cards, and we were using our cash flow, like our typical salary in cash, in order to pay people to do some renovations on our house. And we had a number of other expenses. We had a fire at one of our properties and things like that that we were still dealing with. We were having to do a sort of number of major renovations all at the same time. So we essentially took like a zero interest loan from these credit cards in order to float some of those major renovation costs.
Yeah, 2019 has actually been a very difficult year for us for a lot of different reasons, and financially as well. Even though you'll see that we made a lot of progress this year on a lot of financial things, but we had a lot of financial setbacks that we didn't anticipate this year, including Shannon switching her job, which meant she didn't work for a little part of the year. We had a big emergency in one of our properties, a fire. A lot of other things happened that we weren't anticipating. And so, yeah, it's really not good. We're going to explain in a future video what we're doing about that and our thinking about all this sort of stuff. But
spoiler, we're going on like some crazy debt pay down journeys coming up.
Yeah, but for the purposes of looking at where we are, that's where we are.
Yep, this is what happened.
The student loans, which is the next sheet, the next list here, we didn't really do anything in this couple month period of time to pay them down anymore. So they started at around $260,000 in May, and by September they were about $256,000, which is about a $5,000 change. That's really just making the minimum payments on, I think, a 10-year repayment plan or 15-year repayment plan. I'm not even sure. 15-year, yeah.
So our house mortgage was $252,860 in May, and in September it jumps up to $475,000, which is a change of $222,000, and that is because we bought our forever home.
So if you watched the previous video, we talked about how in May we were preparing to buy this home. We actually bought it in July. So that change, the home that used to be our old home is now an investment property, and our new home is more expensive, and so we have a $475,000 mortgage on it.
Yeah, this is a very expensive house for us to be living in, and we did a number of different things, like, which we'll talk about in the future. Like, we got some roommates because we have extra rooms that we don't have need for now, but our mortgage essentially went up a ton, almost double.
So the investment properties debt here is the last line, and the reason why that changed is because our old primary residence became an investment property. So that changed by about $240,000, which was the balance of that mortgage. So the total difference between May and September of 2019, in May we had about $1.9 million of debt. In September we had almost $2.5 million of debt for a change of $500,000. That's almost entirely from the new mortgage for the house and then from the credit card debt. So that's a very large change for a pretty short period of time.
Yeah, it's something like over $100,000 a month, which is totally insane.
Right.
It's mostly because of the mortgage, but I mean, there's a ton of credit cards out there. So this is a concerning amount of debt. We've been doing really well, as you guys know. Our net worth in the last video was like quite high, especially for our age. This month is going to be a major setback for us with these major purchases.
So the next sheet here, the next slide is our debts. So we try to break these down by the type of debt, as you can see. So by far, the vast majority of our debt is investment properties. And we've talked about it a little bit in the previous video about our view of debt and investment properties. But essentially, that's the only type of debt right now that we're sort of okay with, and we don't really feel the need to pay back very soon. And it luckily is about 2/3 of our entire debt. But given that our entire debt is in the multi-millions of dollars, it's a ton of money. The rest of our debt is our house mortgage, our primary residence mortgage. Student loans are about 10%, credit cards are about 3%, and then this life insurance loan is about 1%. So
and just to pause on the color coding here, we have the investment property in green because we're not planning on paying that anytime soon. Those are buy and hold real estate, and it actually generates way more than the cost of bearing it, and it allows us to get exposure to assets that we otherwise wouldn't be able to get exposure with. So if there's any type of debt that we would consider good debt, that would be the closest to it. So that's why that's in green. Our house mortgage, we put that in yellow because we're sort of neutral on it. It's not good debt. We would certainly rather have $500,000 to buy a house, but we don't. And we have done the math and figured out that owning a house over time, particularly in today's low interest rate environment, is going to be more beneficial for us. And so we see this as kind of a necessary evil. The ones that are in, the tones of red and pink, the student loans, the credit card, and the life insurance loan, these are the kinds of debts that we see as bad, really pants on fire emergencies. And so these are the types of debts that you're going to see us trying to tackle in earnest over the course of this series.
So the next slide here is our asset slide. So you can see the change in investment properties is the first line. Again, it's the same reason why the debt in investment properties changed, because our old primary residence became an investment property for us. We used to value our old house where we lived at $380,000. Now we moved to a new house, which we value at $550,000. So that's a change of $170,000. Our retirement and investment accounts, these are just from making ordinary payments and I guess maybe a little bit of appreciation in what they are, but increased by about $4,000. We had really no increase in the life insurance policy that we somehow acquired. So again, with the life insurance debt not appearing on the debt sheet, the life insurance asset didn't also appear on the asset sheet. So we both have an asset and then there's a cash value to this policy, and there's a debt because there's a debt on the policy as well.
I think in May we might have put that we had it at $10,000, which was just a guess. I think we were still waiting on the paperwork from my dad to transfer the policy to figure out exactly how much it was worth and how much we owed on it. So we corrected that to say 37 here, and then it remained the same in September. For our checkings and savings, we had $62,000 in checking in May when we were gearing up to buy the house because we knew that we were going to have to make that big down payment. And then we had $18,000 in September, which was a change of going down of $44,000, and that's because we made the down payment to buy the house, and then we kept the $18,000 just as kind of liquidity for everyday needs, especially considering our large number of investment properties. But that was quite a shift. Our personal property, we put at $20,000 in May, and I bumped that down to $18,000 in September because I realized that we had been valuing our house and our car and our other things, which will go up and they'll go down, but our personal property is just like a car, a rapidly depreciating asset. If you guys have ever tried to sell furniture on Craigslist, you don't get what you buy things for. So I bumped that down just for wear and tear, and we'll probably do that periodically going forward. So that decreased by $2,000. And this is underlined too because it's a correction or an addition. We have these different bank accounts that are associated with our different properties, some of which are business accounts that we co-own with other co-investors. And this is our pro rata share of those bank accounts, which we could...
Sure, like percentage ownership of it, yeah.
Yeah, so if we needed to, liquidate these, we could basically talk to our partners and take out that amount of money because that's our entitlement. So I added that for May. It was around $6,000 in May, and then by September it was around $12,800, and that's just as a result of income coming into these business accounts that are co-owned and shared with other people.
The value of our car, we essentially just said is the same from May until September. It's about $10,000. So the sum total is that in May we had about $2.8 million of assets. In September, we had about $3.2 million of assets. That's, again, mostly because of the new house, but the change in totality was $384,000.
So this is a graphical representation of our assets, and as you can see, similar to our debts, our investment properties comprise the great majority of our asset base, about 78%. Our house is now 17%, so that's a pretty large chunk of our assets. The cost of our life insurance cash value is 1%, as is our checking and savings, as is our personal property, so that's a pretty small number. And then I thought this was interesting. Our car and our business accounts are both 0%. They don't even round up to above 1%. So I think that the car being such a small percentage of our asset base is actually a pretty frugal win. We have a pretty reasonable car at this point. We're going to drive it into the ground. And I'd obviously love to see
the Honda CR-V.
These other numbers grow.
So then the next slide is our net worth slide. As we talk about this in every video, we calculate net worth a little bit differently than the traditional way that most people calculate net worth, but using the traditional way is just summing up all of your assets, including your house, your car, your personal property, and subtracting all of your debts. So doing that the traditional way in May, we had a net worth of about $913,000. And in September, we have a net worth of about $787,000 for a negative change of $126,000. Again, that is entirely, I would say, due to the new house and the credit card debt that we incurred in those months.
So this is a real bummer because back in May, we were pushing up against the traditional net worth of $1 million. We were probably a month or two away, or maybe a little, well, maybe more than that, but we were maybe 6 months away from becoming paper millionaires. And then we made this decision to upgrade our house. We can do another video about why and the analysis and all of that, but we really set ourselves back a little bit here. I mean, we're talking about a change over a couple of months of of going down our net worth $126,000. So the next slide is a graphical representation of our net equity. So these are all of the assets that have a value and also may have debt on them, but whatever the net, like essentially the net worth of each asset. So we take our house, we have the asset value, and then we take the liability and we subtract it, and we have our net equity in the house. So this slide shows everything that we have that is positive. So it doesn't show our debts for credit cards or anything student loans, anything that doesn't have a positive balance to offset the negative debt. This just shows the things that were net equity, we have a positive number for. So of that, our investment properties are 79%, our retirements comprise 6% of our net equity, our life insurance is 3%, our checkings and savings is 2%, the business accounts are 1%, and then our house is 7%, personal property 1%, and our car is 1%. You'll notice that the stuff in green here, it's all green because it's good, everything has a positive value, but the stuff in gray is the things that we don't calculate in our conservative calculation of net worth.
So that's the next slide right here, the asset slide of backing out the things that we don't count in our net worth. So those are our home, our personal property, the value of our car. As we say over and over in our videos, we don't calculate those in our net worth calculation because we think that even in a scenario where we'd want to liquidate everything, we'd still want to have our house and our car and our personal property. So backing those out changes our assets from about 2.5 million, and in September it's about 2.7 million. The reason why that went up, whereas in previous slides everything went down, is because we're not considering our house, and that was the big kind of driver of our net worth change over the last 4 months. But it's a positive change of $215,000, and then putting that into our net worth calculator, the way that we calculate net worth. So going to our net worth as we calculate it, our net worth under our conservative calculation in May 2019 was about $500,000. In September 2019, it was about $200,000. So that's an even larger negative change than our, the more traditional net worth of negative $300,000. So.
And I think this actually shows the benefit of calculating net worth in a conservative way, because this calculation really punishes us for getting a bigger house. So when you calculate net worth in the traditional way and you're thinking, oh, my house is an asset and it's an investment, it actually incentivizes you to buy a bigger house than you might need.
Right.
But because we don't count our house as an asset, we are looking at this number and we're like, oh, man, like we really took a setback here because we had 500,000 the way we think of net worth, and now we have 200,000. I mean, we've decimated our net worth essentially by making this choice to buy a bigger house. And I think that's part of the value of this methodology, is because you have to ask yourself, why am I calculating my net worth? And for me, I'm calculating it in order to gauge how I'm doing in my path towards financial independence and early retirement. And so I want my calculation to incentivize me and poke me in the right ways. So here's our net equity in the conservative calculation. Investment properties are still the main chunk of it, and we don't have those things that were in gray in this part. So you can see that our retirement and investment accounts occupy 7%, which is a little bit more. If you guys are looking at this graph, and you're like me, you're thinking, holy moly, you guys are really exposed to real estate. And this is something that we are aware of and that we are actively, at this point, trying to remedy. So a more balanced pie chart is hopefully in the future, and it's hopefully something we can build towards. But what we want to do over the next couple of years is to increase our retirement and our investment accounts, and increase our checking and savings and our business accounts. And hopefully that will start to even things out so that we're not so exposed to real estate.
Right. So this is our net worth over time. This is the traditional calculation. You can see it was going up and then it went down. The yellow line is the net worth calculation, so that's not good. And then our net worth over time using our conservative calculation, again, it was going up, the yellow line, and then it went severely down over the last couple months that we were doing it. But the good news is that our story continues, and we have another month that we're going to update you on. That's October. Now that we're up to date, we're going to be doing these net worth updates on a monthly basis, so you'll be able to track month by month as we go along. We're going to have another video too, talking a little bit about some of the debt stuff. So as I talked about before with the credit card debt, we had kind of a big revelatory moment, I would say, around this time where we decided that we would take a different approach to tackling our debt and thinking about debt, and we have that all in a video where we talk about why and how we came to that conclusion. But for the time being,
sneak peek, we're going to be on a debt rampage, you guys, over the next couple of years. We are going to be aggressively paying down our debts, and I'm really excited about it.
So watch that video. We'll probably put it in the description, although we'll probably post it after this video, but we'll put it in the description after we post it so you can check it out. But if you haven't checked out our other videos in this series, I would highly recommend it. I'd love to hear your feedback and thoughts on how we're doing and how you think we should be doing and how you've done in your own FIRE journey. Please comment, send us a message, send us an email, whatever you want. We'd love to talk about it and hear from it. But until next time,
do well and always make things better.